Should you buy a rental property in 2026 or should you wait? If you have that income paycheck, you're feeling pretty good, but something seems to be missing or you're just not really sure how much longer you can just rely on one paycheck. So I could have said it depends, but what we're going to do is break it down. If 2026 is the year for you to buy a rental property, because sometimes waiting costs more than taking action today. So let's get into it. So buying in 2026 is really what we're going to be talking about today, is deciding the framework, for women who are ready to take the next step. And let's get into it. So it's not really a market question as more as it is a question of whether 2026 is the perfect year for you. And the real question is, how exposed are you if you become a one source or your one source disappears? So a single family can dramatically shift just that one transition asset. So we want to take deliberate steps forward to make sure that that's something that you can do in 2026. So let's talk about two costs that most women don't see. So the cost of buying too early. So moving before you have clarity, before you know where to invest, that can really cost you more, right? But on the other hand, waiting too long, every year can be a missed opportunity, right? So a missed down payment, a missed, pay down of the loan. So this is more of a decision filter video, not a prediction, right? So let's find out which side of this decision filter you're on. Now, who am I? Well, my name is Nancy Wallace-Laabs, and I am a licensed realtor. I've been investing in single-family homes for close to 2 decades now. I'm the co-founder of Money Makin Mamas with my daughter, Kelsey Laka. And our mission is very simple. We are here to help women transition into real estate investing without quitting the day job. So if you are someone who's ready to just have that first investor strategy call, ring me up, 469-430-9885, and let's have a conversation. So in order for you to buy a property in 2026, there has to be some things that are true, right? We can't just wake up and go, oh, let's go buy a rental property. So one, you must have a foundation in place, right? So what must be in place? So you have to have stable earned income. Now, this isn't going to be a video about, okay, how to have creative strategies and all of that. This is just about, let's get the foundation down. That you want to find one solid property to invest in. You need to understand what numbers make sense, right? In order to make sure that the property you're looking at is going to be a property that's going to cash flow or bring tax benefits, appreciation, that kind of thing. And then you've got to be in the long-term mindset. Buying single-family homes is not a dash to the finish line, right? So this is a more methodical and thought out process, but you don't need a ton of investment properties to start making a difference in that one paycheck situation. So first of all, before we even decide if we're going to buy a property in 2026, it has to make sense on paper. So we literally help you walk through what numbers should you be looking at. And it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, I'm going to be doing a video about how you don't really need a spreadsheet, right? Does the monthly cash flow hold up after you've looked at, what is the cost of maintaining the property through the rehab, what if you have a vacancy, that kind of thing. And does the rent to payment relationship make sense? Like, you don't want to be, having a $500 deficit, meaning that your mortgage payment, let's say, is $2,000 and you can only get $1,500 a month in rent. That doesn't make sense, right? And if it does sit vacant for a long period of time, are you going to be able to sustain that lack of income from that rental property? So you have to be able to say yes to all three of these questions, and then that's our first decision filter to know if 2026 is the right year for you. So signs that you already may know. Let's look at those. So one, you might be ready if your cash position is solid. You have some money in the bank, your job is solid, you're able to pay your bills, your monthly bills, and be able to have a little bit left over every month. Your work life is stable. You're not anticipating any layoffs. You, basically, you've been there a while, or, even if you just started, but does it feel solid, right? And you buy on numbers, not headlines. So a lot of people, are not investing because they get new investors are saying, the interest rates are too high. You know what? Let me tell you this. In 2026, the interest rates are high if you're a homeowner. You're buying your first purchase. You're purchasing your first property to live in, or you're trying to do a cash out refi on your primary residence. But interest rates for investment properties are always on a little bit of the higher side. And right now, I just did a property where my interest rate was 6.75. And for an investment property, that's really good. And the other thing, as opposed to homeowners insurance, the interest that you're paying is completely tax deductible. You want boring and stable. We're not looking at the get quick rich kind of thing. We want something that's going to take us on down the road, right? That we're actually building solid income from one single asset. So signs that the waiting is the smarter move. Okay, so let's look at that. So it's okay to wait if it's strategic. You're not waiting because of fear. You're waiting because it's strategic. Your cash reserves are a little bit thin, right? Your job situation is shifting. Like in the case of my daughter, her income changed because she, went on maternity leave, and so she got some of her pay, but not all of it. And then your buy box is fuzzy. You're like, well, Nancy, what is a buy box? Well, buy box is like the criteria, like what kind of property are you going to buy? So if you're watching this for the very first time, or you're just now getting into, I want to be a real estate investor, if you don't know what a buy box is, then yeah, you need to wait, because that's strategic. You need to define your buy box. And you're hoping rates save you. So rates aren't going to save you. You can always refinance a house. So let's say you did get a higher interest rate on an investment property. Well, you know what? Just like owning your own home, you can refinance that when they come down. So if it's a good deal and you can get it today, that's what you need to do. And interest rates are one of the last things that you should look at when it comes to buying a great investment property. Now, let's look at the strategic part of waiting. So if you need to build reserves, okay, that's what you need to do, right? I have over the years bought properties with little to no money now, but that is not the norm. And what we want to teach you when you first, get into real estate investing is how to do it. You got to build that solid foundation, that one block, right? And you want to look at, you're clarifying your criteria. So you might be into townhomes or condos, or, my buy box is 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet homes, no pool, corner lot if I can get it. That is a solid buy box, because I know that I can rent that all day long. And you might still be researching markets. Where's the best place to buy? I did another video on, should you be looking in Dallas or Fort Worth? And you should check that out if you're looking to invest in either one of those cities. So you have to know the difference. Are you strategically waiting because that's the smart thing to do? Are you doing avoidant waiting, which means that, you're just hoping. You're hoping that the rates drop. You're waiting for the perfect time. You're unclear about your criteria. You just have no plan, right? Well, yes, you should wait if that's the case because you're just not prepared. So let's talk about the hidden cost of waiting too long, though, right? So every year has a price tag. So when I bought properties almost 20 years ago, of course, they weren't as high as they are today, but they've pretty much doubled in price. So if you look at the value of the dollar versus, buying a piece of real estate, 9 times out of 10, that real estate is going to increase and grow in appreciation. It's going to be worth more tomorrow than what you paid for it today. And then the other thing that you're missing out on is the principal pay down. So if you buy a property in 2026, you have a tenant in there. Let's say that you have a mortgage for, let's just call it $200,000. Well, in 5 years, if you have a tenant that's paying rent, right, then you can pay down that mortgage. So now you have even more equity in that property. And you know what? It's just about the missed experience, because if you don't start somewhere, then when are you going to start? And so I do, answer a lot of questions about when's the right time. So those 3 questions that we talked about, that can help you so you don't have to go, oh, okay, well, I'll wait next year. I'll wait till I, wait. And then in the meantime, you're missing out on great opportunities. So the compound cost of delay is just like how we talk about money, how money compounds, it builds upon itself. Well, that's the same. So no matter what, in all the years I've been buying properties, selling properties, it never lines up perfectly. And there's never going to be the moon is in this 7th realm of whatever and the interest rates are this. You have to just be strategic and be ready when an opportunity presents yourself. And that is, it's so simple, just knowing the area to invest in and the numbers. And those are really the 2 criteria. And then what happens over time, rents tend to go up. So what I was talking about properties, purchase price, well, that's kind of stabling out in 2026, but rents continue to keep going up, which is great if you're a landlord, right? So loan balances go down, right, as tenants pay rent year over year. And your confidence compounds, right? So when you start off, even when I started off, I talk about those butterflies in my stomach and, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? But I had a trusted person, a trusted mentor that I work with that helped me every step of the way. And that's what we're here for you as well. So you want to evaluate instead of timing the market. So that's what I say. Look at what's happening in the area that you want to invest in. Now, one of the things that we use is a heat map. It's awesome because it can tell me exactly where I need to invest, what the average purchase price of homes are at a quick glance. It's super easy and I love it. So I look at that instead of looking at, timing wins the market, because when you start talking about timing of the market, you're getting more into speculation, right? So let's look at those 6 things, right, that really matter. So number 1, monthly cash flow. So again, you put it on paper. Does it work? It doesn't work. I mean, it's a yes or no kind of thing. And then the age of the major systems, or we call them the 5 things. So how old is the roof? How old is the electrical? How old is the AC and heating? The plumbing, major things that over time, the appliances, water heaters. So if you buy a home, a rental property, and the roof is 18 years old, and the water heater is, 9 years old, and the AC unit is close to 30 years old, you're looking at some major purchases in the first year or 2 of that rental property. So, that's probably, unless you negotiate the price down, which is a good thing. And then the quality of the neighborhood. I tend to stay away from neighborhoods that are all rentals, because over time, those neighborhoods have a tendency to kind of decline, depreciate the property. It's harder to get quality and higher rents, right? That's why I kind of avoid those areas. And then rent to payment ratio. So does the rent cover your mortgage, your taxes, and insurance? Now, I have purchased properties where it's very narrow. It's not like, I'm sitting here getting rich off of the off of the monthly cash flow, but I've bought in areas where I knew, because of my research, not because I knew, I didn't have a crystal ball, I had research that said this is a great appreciating area, and some of those properties doubled and tripled in price over the course of 5, 6, 7 years. And then long-term location stability. So, you just kind of have to look at all different things. But one of the things in the video I did about Dallas-Fort Worth is, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Fort Worth actually saw a higher growth rate in jobs than the DFW area. So just little things like that can make a big difference on the area that you want to focus on. So let's talk about this framework, the 2026 framework, I'm calling it. So buy in 2026 if the cash flow is conservative, the market supports stable demand, and your finances, including reserves, are solid, right? That you've got basically, you've got a good job, you're not facing unemployment, that kind of thing. You want to wait if you still need to build a little bit more cash. And that's when people kind of jump into wholesaling, because they want to build that cash, but that's a whole other video, right? And so here's my rule. Don't buy because people are panicking. Don't wait because people are panicking. Use your numbers, your timeline, and your goals, right? So answer those questions. So you want to make it personal. Are the market conditions, and use it as a backdrop. Your situation is the story, right? So women who invest successfully aren't the ones who perfectly time the market. Like me, I just went in, I did my research, and I just bought my first property with the guidance of someone who said, yes, this is a good deal. In fact, her exact words were, if you don't buy this property, I will. And so sometimes when I'm working with my students, I'll say, you know what, if you don't buy this property, then I will. And not because I'm trying to put any pressure, but because it's such a good deal. And I don't want them to miss out on the opportunity. You want to look at the numbers, always the numbers. That is the, gospel, if you will. And you want to look at your market and then your personal goals. And are you ready? Like, readiness is not just on paper, but mindset as well. So your next step is, we do have a free guide about really finding leads, right? It's like, where should you look for leads? And then once you get the leads, what do you do with them, right? So leads can come from any source, and that's what the guide talks about. So it's not like, I do buy lists, but I network, I do a lot of things. So that's what the guide is, and you'll find that in the description below. So, remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So your next step is to download our free guide. The description, the link is in the description. And what this is, it says stop losing deals hiding in your old leads. But right now you probably don't have any leads, right? So it's actually about how to find leads, right? And when we talk about leads, what I'm talking about is how to find motivated sellers, how to find people who have a property that they want to sell. You do have to do a little of your own get ready kind of thing, like do the numbers and things like that. But I want you to also watch my video about, will be in the link below, about Dallas versus Fort Worth. Even if you're not in this area, it gives you a good idea of what to look for in a city that you might be considering buying. So I'm Nancy, and I want you to book your investment strategy call with me at 469-430-9885. Or, if you're just feeling like you need to get that guide to get going, go ahead and download that. And I will see you in the next video.